Oh boy, JD Vance, Donald Trump, Putin, and protecting Elon Musk's interests. JD Vance just made commentary on how their administration is going to play partisan politics and power games if you don't do, NATO, what we tell you to do when it comes to letting Elon Musk do whatever he wants to do. This is the danger that's already setting in this breaking story I'm going to show you in a few seconds. My goodness, look at this supportive information regarding this breaking story. Take a listen.
Well, Mr. President, I appreciate you allowing me to join you on this incredible journey. I thank you for the trust that you placed in me. And under President Trump's leadership, we're never going to stop fighting for you.
CNN's Van Jones, former Maoist, Robbie, said that he was horrified by Vance and lamented that NATO is in deep trouble, which is a strange thing for a Maoist to be concerned about.
You know, part of the reason that JD Vance matters isn't for these kind of short-term electoral calculations. He matters because of what he means to the Republican Party long-term. JD Vance is an ideological nationalist. That's a much more dangerous virus because he can make this, he can polish this stuff, and what it does is it locks the Republican Party on a pathway that I think is dangerous for the world. Again, the Ukrainians are now in deep trouble. NATO is now in deep trouble.
Let me ask you, because there are real concerns about Vladimir Putin invading NATO allies. Under a Trump-Vance administration, can you pledge sitting here today that the U.S. will continue to remain a member of NATO?
Of course, we're going to honor our NATO commitments, but I think it's important, Kristen, that we recognize that NATO is not just a welfare client. It should be a real alliance. And this is a strong difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants NATO to be strong. He wants us to remain in NATO, but he also wants NATO countries to actually carry their share of the defense burden. Under Kamala Harris's leadership, we've actually seen how weak NATO is as a full-scale military alliance. It's effectively the United Kingdom, a couple of other nations, and the United States. NATO's problem is, particularly Germany, has to spend more on security, has to spend more on defense. We can't be the policeman of the world. We want NATO to be an alliance, not just a dependent of the United States.
NATO has been unified in defending Ukraine. Just to be very clear, though, you would stay in NATO. Just a yes?
We would stay in NATO, Kristen,
okay.
But this is important. You're right. NATO has done, some of the countries have done a lot, but actually some of the countries relative to GDP have done very little in Ukraine, and that's important.
You see what he did there? He's setting up the what we should, what they should, so that they have an out to do what they will. And of all people, to be talking about the concept of free speech in conjunction with not doing anything bad to Elon Musk, who's currently controlling with Starlink the actual communications for the Ukrainian army. You want to talk about some dangerous politics on a global stage, saddling up next to Putin? Listen to this breaking story with regards to what he says about Putin, Musk, and NATO. Brace yourself. JD Vance says U.S. could drop support for NATO if Europe tries to regulate Elon Musk's platforms. Republican vice presidential nominee says Germans and other nations, not Russia, would have to fund Ukraine's reconstruction. JD Vance has suggested that American support for NATO should be predicated on the European Union not regulating Elon Musk and his ex-social media platform formerly known as Twitter. We hereby quote with YouTuber Sean Ryan that a top EU official had threatened to arrest the billionaire if he allowed former President Donald Trump back on X. And we quote, the leader, I forget exactly which official it was within the European Union, but sent Elon this threatening letter that basically said, we're going to arrest you if you platform Donald Trump, who, by the way, is the likely next president of the United States. Vance said it in the interview published last week. JD Vance went on to say, so what America should be saying is, if NATO wants us to continue supporting them and NATO wants us to continue to be a good participant in this military alliance, why don't you respect American values and respect free speech? Vance asked. It's insane that we would support a military alliance if that military alliance isn't going to be pro-free speech. I think we can do both. But we've got to say American power comes with certain strings attached. One of those is respecting free speech, especially in our European allies. Musk has been accused of banning several journalists since taking over Twitter, now X. JD finished his conversation by saying, "I'm not going to go to some backwoods country and tell them how to live their lives," Vance added, "but European countries should theoretically share American values, especially about some very basic things like free speech." I'm trying to not laugh in the face of really frightening stuff, but how can you possibly talk about free speech as something that matters to you when it comes to NATO and how much money we're going to put in, when at the same time, out of both sides of your mouth, you let Russia off the hook or protect Russia, likely the first or second least free speech country on the planet? This is what we're facing, folks. Don't let up, don't back down, onward, and stay frosty.